the Buckle Up Garage. This is going to be part 3 of Everything's Neater When You're Driving a Beater. We made the determination in the last installment that the fuel pump pressure regulator in the tank is shot. It gives a little bit, lets her fire up a little bit, but it's not building anywhere near the pressure it should be. So I have stopped and picked up a coffee, go back, and I'm now heading over to Harbor Freight. See if they've got anything that will kind of make dropping the tank out of Hispania a little easier with my floor jack. One way or the other, I'll figure it out. I'm just going to be doing this in the driveway, so. And it's an excuse to go to Harbor Freight, which, let's face it, we all love going to Harbor Freight. So, see what I can find there, and we'll get back to it. Alright, one of the first things we're going to do is fire it up until it stalls. Okay, we're doing that because we want to get as much of the fuel out of the line as we can. So, get that done. And just to be safe, we are going to pull the fuel pump relay. There we go. And fuel pump is right there. I can barely see what I'm doing. So, boom. Just to be safe. Alright, so I made a previous video kind of unboxing the new jack and crossbar or crossbeam that I picked up, and we are now going to use this to get the old Hispania up on jack stands and start working on getting the tank down. So let me get this all set up and we will take a look and see how well this works. Alright, so let's all just slide underneath this thing and see what else is going to be involved in this. I don't think it's going to be too bad. It's more of a just how accessible things are. So let's crawl underneath here, take a look. Alright. Alright, here's our tank at the very rear. Let's see if we can slide back here. It's one of the bolts for the rear gas tank strap. It doesn't look too horrible. Get the angle back. I have the unfortunate issue of pretty much anytime I'm out in the driveway working on anything, laying on it or whatever, or laying under it, the sun always seems to be like shining right in my eyeballs, and this is probably no different. But that does not look too bad, considering this thing's a Wisconsin vehicle. You know, I would think that's probably going to zip out of there, but I guess I would say this is a seen better, seen worse. The front one, pretty much the same. I don't think I got to worry about it. Something stripping off the head, but I'm more worried about the threads. At the front, oh man. Let's see if we can back out a little bit. That's the charcoal canister. I think probably all I really need to do is unhook the ESIM and connectors. I don't think I got to take the canister off the tank. and leave it in place. Looks like the back side of the straps are just hooked in, so those 2 bolts are the only bolts that got to come out. And then I think we slowly drop it down. Let's get to the fuel pump on top and disconnect there. As I mentioned earlier, I have got an issue with the fuel filler neck. At one point in the past, I had went to siphon gas out of it and did the old holes down the filler neck trick, and ever since then it kicks back almost instantaneously. It takes forever to put fuel in this thing. So I'm sure I bent whatever the kickback valve is with the hose in there, so I've got a new filler neck for this thing as well. And so we got a couple. Get around the other side of this. Get a better look at it. There's room, but there's not room. I'm probably going to use this to try and decipher what that is. I'm not going to be able to get near it. Anyway, so it really doesn't look like it's too bad to get this tank down. Yeah, there's the bolt. So let's give this a shot. Alright, so now we got to get the gas tank straps. I want to at least loosen them up. I did come in here with some PB Blaster before, previous section of this. Hopefully to crack them loose. They didn't look too rusty, so I don't think I'm going to have too much of a problem. But I want to at least get them loose, and then probably get the jack underneath here supporting the tank. I'm going to try and drop it down a little bit and see if that's going to make it a little easier to get at the lines and connections and hoses and everything else that have to be disconnected to get this going. So these bolts are not 15 millimeter. Thought they were. I'm going to go grab a different socket. Let's see here. 16 millimeter. We'll see just how difficult. Alright, let's try that again. 16, but for the half drive. $16 millimeter for the half-inch drive. Say it before, and I'll say it again. It ain't easy being me. Okay, that don't feel good. Not good at all. Huh. I think they really are 15s. This one is a little munged up. It is pretty crispy and crunchy underneath here. Safety glasses. You can pick these things up dirt cheap. It's much better than getting crap in your eyes. Let's give it a couple of love taps here just to make sure it's seated. speaking of the rust, I just feel it going to my ears. Let's see how this goes. Feel a little bit of something happening there. Whenever you're dealing with stuff that's this rusty, don't like get the wrench or the ratchet on there and give it a hard yank trying to break it loose, because inevitably that's going to either strip the socket or the wrench over the hex of the bolt or the nut, or it's possibly going to snap the bolt or the nut head off. I always find it best to, granted depending on the situation, but just kind of lean into it and give it a squeeze so you can kind of feel what the fastener is doing. You might save yourself a big pain in the butt. If you feel it's starting to go but it's resisting, you can at least get it crack loose, hit it with some PB Blaster or whatever, Croil or whatever your penetrating oil of choice is. It's worth taking your time, because nothing sucks worse than snapping off hardware and spending twice or 3 times as long fixing what you broke because you kind of came at it like a gorilla. Sound's moving a little bit, so I think that PB will get in there and hopefully work its magic. I'm gonna go get my hope I don't live to regret this. I'm gonna get my breaker bar and see if that helps on this back one. Breaker bar gives you a little bit better leverage. Got a solid connection instead of the ratcheting mechanism. And then of course there's this little trick to kind of get you some more leverage on it. But I'm going to restate, be easy, squeeze, don't yank. Insert jokes here. Alright, so it wasn't agreeing with trying to do this manually. I decided to go get my impact, and run the compressor, and we're just going to try and tap this thing loose. Hopefully this works a little better than what I was doing. And everybody just say a little prayer that it doesn't snap. So let's give this a shot. the breaker bar again. I'm a little less nervous that it's going to break now. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, the handle bolt's starting to strip. Definitely not what I wanted to happen. It's not completely munged up, but it ain't good either. Alright, so we're going to need to think about what we're going to do here before it's completely balled up. Not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous about going in here with the map gas and trying to heat it a little bit. It is a fuel tank. It's not a leaking fuel tank, and it is plastic, but might be the only choice I've got. Hate the thought of pounding a smaller socket over the top of it, because then you're really at the point of no return. So I guess I will try the map gas. Oh boy. It officially broke. Well, that's kind of hot. It is exactly what I did not want to happen. So, I'm going to leave that strap in. We're going to reset. We're going to at least get the gas tank out. And then I'm going to have to figure out how to get that bolt fixed. So, yay me. Well, today was going to be the day I got back on the fuel pump in the Aspen. Got underneath it yesterday and started taking things apart. Got bit by some rust. You'll see that in the video. I was going to get back out here and get back to it, but last night this happened. Yeah, welcome to Wisconsin. 50 degrees one day, 4 or 5 inches of wet crappy heavy snow the next. So I think we're just going to put that on hold for now. Going to work on some other videos, editing and stuff like that. Try and put together the one I've been working on about the ball stud Hemi, which you're probably going to see right here. So yeah, those of you that don't live in the Rust Belt or where there's snow, yeah, I'm jealous. Alright, so we're changing the angle up on this a little bit. Move the jack around the back. I've got that new Harbor Freight crossbeam on there that's going to support the tank. Here's the back strap that the bolt just broke on. I don't have to worry about that as time goes. I'm going to get this other one out, or at least backed off, and start unhooking fuel lines and evap lines and things like that. So I got way too long of an extension on this. And that's an unbroken bolt. But if you look at how rusted those threads are. Hope you can see that. I think that's the majority of what the problem is. Where the threads are clean is where they were inside the fastener. Up on top here is where the rust is. So the problem is trying to crack this loose. All this rusted thread is trying to go down into the fastener as the bolt's coming out. So I guess in retrospect, if there was some way to get on top of the fastener with the penetrating oil, probably would have been a better deal. But the other one's already broke, so there's not much I can do about it. So we're going to keep moving on here, start taking things apart. Now we got the vacuum canister. You know what, I'm going to pull this thing out once, maybe I can show you a little better. Alright, so to gain some better access underneath here, because it is pretty tight and everything's pretty crispy, and because I needed to turn that around, I'm going to need to replace the filler hose assembly, because the kickback valve is messed up in it and it takes forever to fill it. The spare tire's got to come out of the way to do that anyway, and having the spare tire out of the way gets me a whole lot more arm room to get in here and get things disconnected. Pull the filler hose, the rubber hose out, and this vent tube here is a quick connect right there, and it just did not want to come out, and I don't want to break that quick connect portion, the plastic. So since that's going to drop out with the tank, I'll take care of that once it's out and on the carts or on the ground or wherever I'm pulling the fuel pump out. The new section, it's cut right here. The new section comes as part of the filler hose. As you can see, everything's pretty crispy underneath this thing. You know, where I live, this is just the way of life. So that's all going to get replaced, the new filler hose. But I don't think there's a whole lot else I got to get down or disconnected back here. I'm holding it up with a floor jack at the moment. But we'll just keep plugging away at this and get the job done. Alright, so the fuel tank is down. I got the straps pulled out. You turn them about halfway and they slot out. As expected, it's pretty crispy, the lock ring on this thing. Hopefully I haven't messed up my fuel line here, because I couldn't quite get it while it was up there, and it is stretched pretty tight. So I had to get that quick release off on the fuel line and the quick release off on the electrical connection. So hang tight. All right, ain't gonna lie, this is a pain in the ass. I've never had a hard shell connector fight me as hard as the one that is or was hooked up to the old fuel pump. Let me show you what I'm dealing with here. And that's the crispity crunchiness, the rust. I am going to have to get a new fuel pump connector. It came out in pieces. There's a couple of chunks laying here on the ground. Just get it to focus. Just dry and brittle and just didn't want to release, and pieces started snapping off. So it's out. It sucked, but at least this is almost the halfway point. I'll get the fuel pump out and drop the new one in. Alright, so we let the tank sit overnight, soaked the lock ring down with some PB Blaster. I doubt that's going to help much at all. We have to work the vent tube out of the connector that I cut and make that ready for the new filler neck. Realization, the filler neck that I was replacing because I thought the rollover, the kickback valve was in the filler neck. Apparently is not. It's right down inside the very top of the tank. It had just kind of stuck in place, and that was what was causing my fill issues. So the filler neck really didn't need to be replaced, but I've got it, and I did cut that line, so it's getting changed. So I am going to set the camera up, and hopefully this thing cuts loose and doesn't give me too much problems. I also want to get, it's got about a half a tank of gas in it. Hopefully I can get that siphoned out and make getting this thing back in a whole lot easier. So let's go to it. Alright, so first thing I did was I got it up on a reasonably stable table that I have laying around. I keep a couple of these for just making little workbenches out of different places. I did ratchet strap it onto the table so it's reasonably secure, so it's at a better height for me to work on, so I'm not bending over and messing with my back. Some of you guys out there realize it's worth the effort to put it at a better work height for you. Well, you don't end up crippling yourself by the end of the job. So it is up, it's strapped down. I'm gonna try and get the fuel pump out. I did buy a new lock ring because I kind of anticipated this being a rusty piece of garbage, and it's probably gonna come apart on me. I'm sure it's gonna fight me, everything else has. So give this a shot. Alright, so I've been kind of banging away on this thing for about 20 minutes. It's not moving, but you can see that I'm slowly but surely getting some of the rust that's between the ring and these lips out of there. There is a specific tool that you can buy that kind of locks onto these and twists. I don't have one of those, and I didn't think I would probably need one. These usually come loose after a little persuasion. This one's being pretty stubborn. But I just kind of wanted to give you a close-up how rusty and crispy this is. This is all, because I cleaned all this out, but that's all the rust that's kind of knocked loose while I'm doing this. So it's pretty bad. So I'm going to reset up the camera, and we're going to keep slugging away at this, see if we can get this thing to pop. And believe it or not, we are getting some movement here. You can see a little bit of a gap as it's slowly turning its way out. I'm trying to be really careful because if I tear this up, so we'll get there. You know, if I tear this up, it's really gonna not give me any place to get a bite on. But I'm slowly getting some spots here, so that's a good thing. It's moving. Squirt a little bit more PB Blaster in there, so that should help. Hopefully we're in the home stretch with this. Yes! Boom! Ah! That, ladies and gentlemen, is success. It was crappy, but I got it off. Let's turn this around. That is a mess. And I guess I didn't destroy it too much, but we're definitely not reusing it. Now, I need to clean this mess up as much as I can because I don't want any of this crap, as little of this crap getting down into the tank as possible. So believe it or not, I'm going to it's kind of spring-loaded. I'm going to kind of push that back down and hold it in place now that I know that it's loose. And then get in here with a shop vac and some wipes and stuff like that, clean that up as best I can. Little persuasion. Now here's where I want to get as much fuel out of this thing as I can. And I'd like to siphon it. I don't think I've got nearly enough gas cans here to hold what's left in this thing. But as much as I can get out, I'm going to get out. So I might take a trip and see if I can get like a miniature fuel pump to do this, but we'll give this a shot the old-fashioned way. Another reason why I wanted the tank up kind of high, makes it a lot easier if the can or whatever that you're putting the fuel into is lower than where you're pulling it out of. So let's get that set up and give it a shot. Alright, so we need to get the gas that's in the tank out of the tank, make it easier to handle. There's a lot of ways to siphon gas. One of the ways that I came across that actually works pretty well is one of these clickety-clack jiggly siphon tubes. There's a check ball at the end of this thing. You submerge that in the fuel, get the other end of it down into your gas can or wherever you're moving it to, and you get that ball bouncing around, and that is what starts the suction. After a little bit, you've got fuel flowing into your receptacle. You click it a few more times, get the flow going. Get any air pockets out of it. And you've now got gas flowing and getting transferred. We're about a half a gallon already. Keep an eye on it, and when this is full, because there's way more fuel in this than this thing's going to hold, you pull the clickety-clack ball out of the fuel. That's about it. Pretty cool. Now we got to drop the new pump in. As you guys saw, it was pretty crispy. I cleaned up as much of the rust as I could. Made sure that the surface that the O-ring sits in is as clean as it can be. I didn't want to scrape and chisel away at this too much because, you know, I don't want that getting down into the tank. And for all intents and purposes, the new lock ring is going to fit on that thing. It's going to seal it down. So let's go over here, take a look at what I picked up. Got this off of Rock Auto. Fuel pump A Premium or AP Premium. Just a generic Rock Auto pump. I believe it went for $55 or $60. Pretty much all the same. Probably the last pump this vehicle's ever going to see. Comes with a new O-ring seal, but I did purchase a new lock ring, and I did not realize the lock ring was going to come with a seal as well. So I got a spare, but I think this was $7. And judging from the condition of the one that came out of the tank, yeah, $7 well spent. So let's get to putting the pump into the tank. All right, so first thing you want to do is, and I'm going to use the O-ring that came with the pump. I figure who better to make sure it seals to the pump than the people that supplied the pump. And we'll keep that spare just in case for any reason this one fails for some reason. I've got that back up. So you set the O-ring down on there. Here's your pump. This is the reservoir that picks up the fuel. This is the arm for the sending unit that runs the gauge. And if you remember right, the charcoal canister is the front of the tank. The plug into it pointed towards the front. I don't know if you probably won't see into the tank any other way than the way it should, but the plug to the tank should point towards the charcoal canister. And if you remember right, getting the old one out was a little forcible persuasion, so I'm sure this is gonna probably need to be wiggled and jiggled a few times. So just make sure you don't bend this, because it'll throw your gauge off. So let's get this down in here. Yeah, you got to kind of squeeze that lever past. Out she goes. Double check, make sure that O-ring is sealed. And also, if you remember, this thing is spring loaded, so you are going to need to kind of press down on it a little bit. Grab the new lock ring. Lay that over. Turn it upside down. Really want to make sure that I get this thing centered and sealed in there. That's going to go pretty easy. All right, you're going to have to give it a little gentle persuasion, a few taps. Lock ring is going to turn clockwise to lock in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tabs all the way around. Make sure they're all at least down somewhat to start. Boy, this goes a lot easier on than the old one came off. Boom, we are in place. I'm going to grab it here and take a look. We did knock a little bit more rust out of here. Tell you a second. All right, as you can see, lock ring is in place. You drop it down and twist it until you're pretty much buttered up here. You can see this twists in, locks in place. Actually, I'm going to say I got to give it a couple of more wraps. You'll see this lip here should be lined up and set to this lip here, and then it's locked completely in place. So I'm just going to give it a couple more taps, but essentially it is in. Last thing I need to do is get the remnants of the vent tube out of there. I won't bore you with that because it's probably going to fight me a little bit, but you know, we just got to push those locks in, and you know, with better access here, just yank the last of this steel tube out of here. So the pump is in, and all that's left is putting everything back into the truck, and you know, that's next. All right, we're back underneath. Couple things that I had to fix. If you remember from earlier in the video, honest truth is this has been going on for a couple of weeks at least, trying to get this done in my spare time, fighting weather and stuff like that. So remember, I had to break apart the connector to the fuel pump itself, the electrical connector, and the rearmost gas tank bolt, gas tank strap bolt snapped off. So rather than bore you with wire connector repair and things like that, I'll just show you what I ended up with. So all right, this would normally have been a bolt going through this cross member. This is open on top and all kinds of crap built up inside there. I'm surprised that both bolts didn't break, but this one did snap off. So I started trying to drill it out. It was actually going pretty good. You can see I kind of cleaned things up, evened it out. Got a couple of smaller drills into it. Got a really good start. It was actually pretty centered. And then one of the drill bits snapped off inside. So what I did, if you look really close here, that's right where the original bolt went in. And it's got a nut welded to the back side of this piece here. So it's kind of hack job here, but it's what I was able to do here in the driveway. I kind of dropped down just about a head's worth, drilled through, and then I dropped the bolt down through the hole and then nutted the bolt on. So I've kind of changed this to kind of like a stud setup, and I think that's going to probably work just fine. It was kind of ugly, took a while, a lot of crap falling on my face, but yeah, this is the kind of thing sometimes you got to do, especially where I'm at, where pretty much everything snaps and breaks. But I think it'll be all right. You know, I got this tightened down really good. Cleaned out as much of the crap from the other side of this as I could. Kind of a stupid design. I mean, there's literally a pile of debris and muck and garbage on there. The bolt really never stood a chance. So swing this around. Wired in a new connector. The hard shell connector I found while it was listed for this vehicle, and it fits the fuel pump, you know, this hard shell, the wiring wasn't correct. It was actually, it had a connector at the opposite end. It's about 2 feet long. You know, and I followed the harness in the vehicle as far forward as I could, and there was nothing that matched up to it. And the gauge of the wire was different, so I basically I pulled all the wires one by one, put them back in the same position. So I was able to use the wire colors and tracers and things like that to make sure it's wired in correctly. So I still do have to get the filler neck out and swap that out, even though I realized I probably really didn't need to do that. The kickback valve is actually in the tank and it was just stuck. So we'll get to that. All right, tank's back up and in. It was a bit of a wrestling match. I'll be quite honest, I kind of forgot about filming while I was doing this because it was sort of kicking my ass. But we'll get you a shot here. You can see strap bolted right back up, lined up real well with the kind of improvised, re-drilled out stud setup that I did. It's a little dark in there. Can't really see the front bolt, but it is what it is. Yeah, it's up and in. I'm going to show you kind of what I had to do in the back by the filler neck. All right, so we're pretty much done. A couple of, kind of hacky kind of things I had to do here to get everything back together. First and foremost, I ended up cutting the vent tube because it was seized up in the connector, the quick connect down there, and dropped that front section down with the tank like you saw. Ended up not being able to get the fuel neck out. I tried just about everything, and it just could not find the combination to snake this thing out of here. And then, the reason I was changing in the first place was that I was getting fuel kickback when I was filling it up, and ends up there's a rollover valve or a flap actually in the hose, and there's one right inside the tank. So I kind of freed those up as best I could. Slapped it back together and just spliced this in. That's just a vent, so I'm not too worried about that. If you look real close, this one clamp twisted and bound up, and I already had the hose and the neck and everything in. It's in a position where I just can't quite get that thing cut, so I kind of left it there. It is what it is. Put a new hose clamp on it. So I got everything buttoned up down here. Nothing left to do but give this thing a shot. I already poured about a gallon of gas back into it, because I had drained it out. Let's give this thing a shot. All right, so we got the fuel pump relay back in. Got everything buttoned up underneath the hood. Still had the air intake silencer, whatever you want to call it, kind of off and out of the way. The battery was a little dead from sitting so long. Like I said, this has been going on for quite a while. A few weeks anyway. Actually better than a month. Again, it's Wisconsin, fighting weather, working, family stuff. But let's give it a shot. Well, it's holding RPM. Kind of snake her out of the driveway. Well, it's already running better than it was. It's sputtering and dying, and I think we got this nailed. Yeah, so good. Check engine lights staying off. So I'm just going to take it for a little cruise. I won't bore you with the drive around. Let's see what happens. I guess see you back at the house. All right, well, we got out on the freeway and some side streets, all that kind of thing. Seems to be just fine now. Drove around, got it charged up a little bit. Like I said, it's been sitting for quite a while, so it's a little dead at the key. But yeah, I think we can sign off on this one as being done. So nothing left to do but kind of clean up the mess in the driveway. Get the spare tire back in, and I guess move on to the next project. So I appreciate you kind of sitting through all this multi-part garbage. Snake her in here. Got a lot of other crap we got to get done. So I just hit my jack stand. So again, there we go. That's putting a fuel pump and all the misery that goes with it in a 2007 Aspen. Again, I appreciate you tuning in, following along with things. As always, hit the subscribe button, leave some comments, hit the like button, tell your friends. I appreciate it all. I'm going to keep rolling with this. And like I said, on to the next project. There's plenty to do around here. So again, thanks for tuning in. Later.